subconscious, I need you to do this. It will not hear.
Order it.
Right. But if I was to use Milton Erickson's hypnotic language, who worked on us and got us well. And so he said, if you go to chiropractic school, I will teach you what it is that I do. So that became a journey, because when you were hearing about these things, it's one thing. But when you've experienced it and you realize, wait, but one establishment, the mainstream, said you can never get better. This is incurable. Suddenly, you never get cured, but you did heal. It puts you on a path of understanding that nobody can tell you you're wrong, because you know something that most people don't know. So that got me started at a very early age studying meditation, hypnosis, finding teachers that I could learn from for periods of time, and then going to chiropractic school.
But what age had you started to meditate or to learn
meditation? Gosh, I started meditation at about 15 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And it was more difficult back then because you don't find teachers. There was no online there was no way to chart your progress. Today we know we can use a headset and read our brain waves and things like this. But back then it's the recommended method of the app used by the hospitals in the UK for women that are pregnant with headaches. They don't have to take medication. And it's just a method over Zoom where I figured out the frequency of headaches and migraines so we can clear those patterns. And when we clear the frequency, the migraine goes with it. So I was doing that for some time, which led me to the field of consciousness work. And the field of conscious work is about clearing the emotions. And it's physical too, but it's so powerful to suddenly create a frequency change in emotions, and suddenly the emotion is gone. It's like it dissolves. And I'll tell you much more about it. I don't want to.
Yeah, I have so many questions, and but I don't want to interrupt you, but I mean, I have like zillion of the. So consciousness healing, it's a term that I'm sure not a lot of people can really wrap their head around. So what is it exactly?
Well,
you heal trauma in the physical world, but you heal them on.
And so we live within this field and we can work with this field. We do all the time. It's, if you're near high levels of radiation within the field, it's invisible, but it affects you. So the field is meant to be subtle so we can swim in it like fish swim in the ocean. But we can also work with it once we become sensitive to it. And when we do that, it's another level of what appears magical, but it's really science-based, it's frequency-based, it's highly reproducible.
But it's so funny, William, that you say it's science-based, because in my mind, that seems, more spiritually, more spiritual-based. But you can explain it scientifically, right?
Well, yes. So to me, doing these feats or these things that seem spiritual, we can call them spiritual, but in the end, science will solve them, right? So if I say, I taught a class on how till they're about touching, and then when the messages come in, we get to hear most of it. It's waiting for us to do that.
So would you say that, for example, we have message coming in and out or in, and because we're so busy in our mind thinking about so many things, we don't pay attention to it, but it's always there, but it's only when we calm ourselves that we can really get the full benefit of it? Or
yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. If imagine Amazon delivers a package that you didn't order and they don't ring your doorbell. It sits on your doorbell until someone steals it. On your doors. You didn't know it was there. You had no reference to know, because we're not trained. We're not given the reference points. We're not told, when you get a message from your intuition, here's what it feels like. Here's what it sounds like. Here's what it looks like. So it just happens to pass amongst the busyness. But the messages are always coming. It's our inner intuition in its oldest definition in the dictionary. Tuition literally means.
Would you say that it's something do you feel like you have a superpower that you can use because you can tap into it, play with your destiny? Or
to me, it feels normal. Somebody else would definitely say, oh, wow, what you do is, but it's really just like shooting a basketball 10,000 times. If you do it enough and you want to learn it, you're going to get really good at shooting that basketball. It's when you notice, the newest work that I'm doing, the field of consciousness work, we clear trauma patterns, we clear any of the emotional restraints that stop somebody from going to the next level, from letting go of the trauma or from achieving more. And that came during a Tai Chi class. It's like Qigong or martial arts, but a slow moving martial arts. Now, in my book, I have one meditation that I call super slow movement, where you move your body so slowly in a specific way, because when you move so slowly and then slower, your mind begins to notice that there are moments in between the moments. So if I just move from right to left, there was a lot of space in between my hand from right to left that I missed. Moist. And now it's going to rain. So we now know what the animal knew. But back then we thought animals had a psychic sense. Now we know it's technology can tell us. So it's both. We're born with it. It's very obvious. It gets put away. And unless we want to nurture it, even in meditation, when I was training with different teachers in different schools, and I would ask questions about psychic awareness, intuition, and what would the answer be if it was a serious study? They would say, ignore it, go back to your meditation. That's a distraction from meditating. And my take was, oh no, because I'm in the real world too. These are helpful, and this information I'm getting, I want to stop to write this down because I'm not going to remember this later, and I can use this.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you are pinging yourself to make a note of, oh, this is what it feels like when you get a message. This is what it feels like. And in the book, I teach a method called the foundational breath technique that teaches you how to use your breath to access your intuition on a conscious level.
And we can access our intuition with only breathing, basically.
Exactly. Breathing and awareness. Breathing. See, there's a training where once you learn what your breath feels like when something is right for you or something's, next thing you know, you start to recognize that breathing during the day, and you reach for food on the shelf of the store and you feel your breathing change, and you say, oh, that's not good for you. And as you practice it, it translates from just a 0 or a 1, a yes or a no, and then it begins to translate to a word, and then a sentence, and then a paragraph, and then a story. And next thing you know, you're getting information that somebody else would say was magical or highly intuitive, psychic, but really it's just practice. No. We're meant to be able to do these things. We just don't make the time. You know, and in reference to the Tai Chi that I mentioned, during that class, I noticed this energy wash over me. And I thought to myself, oh my God, a new energy. This is really interesting. And then I clicked and I said, it's not a new energy. It's just the Tai Chi just brought me to another level of sensitivity. So I was able to feel something I'd never felt before. And then I went to my teacher who had a shoulder injury, and I said, hey, can I just try something on your shoulder? And I put my hands on him and moved them around, and next thing you know, his shoulder was better. And that's when I knew I was onto something.
Absolutely. Because I think when we first talked, you explained to me that you started your career as a chiropractor.
Correct. Yes.
Right. And what did you see different, from what led you to something with not a higher purpose, but a different direction? Because I feel even your chiropractor have an amazing purpose, it's
sure.
But your life, is there like a tipping point that you realize something and your life went on another direction? Or,
well, remember, when this healer who was a chiropractor and when he worked on us, and and he's so well known. He actually works with Tony now.
Donnie Epstein?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Donnie.
Okay.
And so he was, when I was a kid, he was my first healer. And so, as they say in Family Constellations, Michelle Bleckner just said last night, this will lead to many, many flowers. And, Donnie's trained a lot of people, and each one has learned something, but also many have developed their own systems because of the early energy openings. So in that was always my interest, is the energetic side of it. But at the time he said, be a chiropractor and I'll teach you. I don't want to teach you if you're not going to be a doctor. And so that's where it starts. And then, and thankfully, because, to be taken seriously, to work with other professionals, it's something that's very important to be able to discuss, anatomy and pathology and things you may not know if you're not.
Like nutrition, diet, sleep, exercising are all themes that we all heard of. We all know, we have our foundation or what we think we know about it, but we all know it's important to live a healthy life, but more and more that I'm going, and through that process, I go and I meet a lot of people that on the spiritual world or on the energy field world, and it blew my mind, because I tend to be like someone very, I would say pragmatic, very square, very like, and right now I kind of go back from my, how can I say, from my structure brain and balance to my heart,
Sure.
So how powerful do you feel like mastering that part of our inner self would help us like living longer? Like, what's your thought about that? Because more and more I'm learning about that. I'm learning about our own, about what I just said, and I truly feel there's a huge impact. But I would like to have your perspective on that.
There is a huge impact. It's consider if you're storing tension or if you're angry all the time or sad all the time. Imagine your brain is dumping all these hormones related to anger that raises blood pressure, that creates wrinkles, that brings more cortisol, that makes you gain weight. So that's not a healthy place to be if you're holding that. Now, the fact is we could choose our emotions if we want to. We know we can change our state with a little bit of effort. So, but we're not trained to choose positive emotions. We're trained to be angry as long as you need to. Feel sad until you're ready to let go. But when you're really happy, we're told, okay, calm down now, calm down. It's a little bit too much, right? So the happy, feeling good is a longevity drug. It's going to make us feel young, look good, much more than if we're angry all the time. So when we are tuning in to our bodies, our minds, our spirit, our nature's processes on the level they're meant to be connected to, we're matching the universe's message for us. We're literally attracting whatever it is we are living. So if we're feeling good, we're getting more of that. If we're feeling thankful, we're getting more of that. And that's really, ultimately, that's the highest level. For me, with the work that I do, no matter how in touch I may be or may not be, most of this work I can't do on myself, right? Which is a shame because I need it.
So why you cannot do it on yourself? I'm curious.
I could say one is because we need others to do things for us in general, just like you can't do surgery on yourself. But two is, on a more literal sense, my mind can't be in two places at once with the work. With my attention, there was a time I hurt my elbow and I was clearing the field on it. But the thing was, as I was putting my attention with this hand here, I was also feeling what I was doing with this hand. And I really needed all my attention to be on this side. So by bringing my awareness here, if I pulled everything here, it needs to be the other person's mind that is feeling the results while I'm doing the work. I can't feel and do at the same time. It distracts.
Yeah.
So, and from an emotional perspective, I don't know how I would do it. That was the physical side of things. And that's why, the headaches work I'm teaching, and I'll start to teach the field of consciousness work in the near future. I'm not ready to start yet, but they're very similar work. It's just one is an intention around headaches and migraines, and the other the intention around healing all the emotions in the body.
So when we say healing, so can we heal physical pain?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Physical pain.
And physical, such as like can you give me some example of session that you've done with people
with physical?
Well, with physical. I'm curious,
I do demonstrations at events all the time because I have some quick demos that I call them. And what I'll do is if somebody especially has said they haven't felt energy before, what I'll do is just say to them, okay, well, I'll ask them to move both of their wrists and just tell me which one feels tighter. And very often people have a restriction in a wrist or not. And if they don't, I'll ask them to do their shoulder, their knee. And I ask for that because I want to make sure they have a comparison one to the other, right? Because if I do it to their head, they only have one head. So they could just suddenly think they feel different. So I'll just, once I feel that, I'll just unwind these invisible bands of energy that are restricting the flow of life, which affects the whole system. Because if you have a clogged pipe, it's going to affect many things in your home, not just that one tiny spot. And then I'll clear the pattern, and then they'll do this and say, oh my God, feels like it was taken off and greased and put back together. And now the other one feels tighter.
So
right.
You need to be, either in the yoga industry, like in the yoga community, or in the more spiritual world, to be, I think, to be more like,
I think you need a reason. You need a reason.
You need a reason.
Yeah, I mean, most people that want to be doctors or healers, they're driven by something that has happened in their past.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. And I would guess if we split the planet in half in terms of how many people are on it, it's possible, at least in the US anyway, more people are sick than not sick. And most of them are told, we can manage this, but you can't really get better.
Exactly.
Instead of being told with a few changes and some lifestyle types of things, you can beat this. This is healable. It's just only healable if you do the right things.
Yes. So I'm curious. So when you do your practice, like, do you see something? Do you feel energy, or like, what's your, how do you know, like,
it's a great question. Well, there's different things that I feel. It depends what I'm doing. I'll talk about the work I do over Zoom now because I'm doing the most of that. And when I'm doing the field of consciousness work, I did a live event recently, and towards the end of the event, I had asked, has anyone in here had any severe traumas in their life that they're having trouble letting go of? And one woman raised her hand. I didn't call on her, but she ended up getting called on coincidentally, let's call it, universally, coincidentally. And so she came up and she said, well, the thing is, I have back pain. It hasn't gone away. I've tried everything. It must be emotional. So I said, well, let's find out. So I started to clear the field of consciousness around that, and it was gone very quickly. And then we checked in, and the emotion that came up was lonely. So we went in.
The emotion that she told you, that you
I felt it, and I mentioned it, and she said, yes, that's correct.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So then we went and cleared that emotion, or that frequency, right? Because every emotion has a frequency to it. Just like when you dial a phone number, you're dialing a frequency to connect to the other side. And so these frequencies stick to the body. When you have a trauma, it sticks to you like a little parasite, and it feeds off of you, and you feed it because it's very comfortable to feel that pain like a blanket we want to hold, and we hold it for way too long. So we clear the lonely, and then she starts crying. Really. And, there's a room full of people. Her fiance died. It was the anniversary of 1 year. She hasn't been able to let it go. And I said, well, let's clear it out.
Wow.
And if you were to now look at my Instagram, there's a photo of her at the front of the room with this huge smile on her face, because when we cleared that dense emotion that's been sitting on us, suddenly it's gone and you don't know where it went. You can have the memory, but the pain is gone because it was never your pain. It was a frequency that resonates. It's like putting your finger on a guitar string and expecting to get the proper tune off the guitar string. You won't until you remove your finger. So what I'm essentially doing is removing this density. I'm feeling it, removing it, or I should say demagnetizing it, because it's really magnetized like an electromagnet. It comes to you during the trauma, and it's like when you put your hand in front of the mirror. Immediately a hand in the mirror appears. It's exactly like that. It meets you right there. But if you can find a way to remove this hand, this one goes away equally as fast. So I feel the frequency, and lately something interesting is happening where I'm starting to see numbers. And really? And I'm testing. It's very, very interesting. When the frequency is very dense for trauma, I'm seeing coagulated zeros, like all these zeros clumped together. And when I start to free it up, they start to separate like blood cells, and then ones start coming in and balancing. It's brand new. I don't know what it means yet. But I'm enjoying that I'm getting a visual, because I'm usually much more kinesthetic. I usually feel it versus see it. So it's very interesting.
Wow. And did it happen like in a specific moment, or
a few weeks ago? Just a few weeks ago, I started seeing numbers, and I was like, "Oh, wow, I like this. Awesome. I wonder what."
Had you exchanged that with other healer or other maybe mentor?
Not yet.
No? Okay.
You're the first one publicly who's hearing about it because when I feel, I know I'm connected to it. I feel the change is happening. When I'm seeing the numbers, I don't have a feel connection to it. So I don't yet know it means something until I continue to watch for a while. And maybe there'll be a time when I say, oh, there are the zeros. Let me just move them. And I won't even have to use feeling because maybe it's just effective like that. I don't know yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's and would you say that some people are more that some people cannot be healed, let's say, by your practice because they're not receptive?
There are a few people, everybody. And so I can't say why. If somebody's having an emotional trauma that's ongoing, if they're in an abusive relationship and we clear it and they feel good and then they go back home to the same abuse, there's a problem there. Something else needs to happen. We can clear the frequency that's causing the turmoil. But there's a level of, there has to be changes in real life too.
So it's very funny. So I was at the Whistler event of Tony Robbins 2 weeks ago, and Donnie Eckstein was there. And I had the first time I do it. And we were like, I think 15 people, and he did a session for for everyone. And it's very funny because I kind of stressed about it before to do it because I keep seeing people they're laying down on the table and Donnie is doing his healing, and you see people starting to move and to do some movement and really physically you see and that's really I was flabbergasted. I was like, oh my God, okay, so it's so clear there's energy everywhere, and I mean there's something going on there, and I'm very open-minded, so I was not arm cross and doubting. I was just observing, and I think I was kind of stressing because I was expecting or hoping that I would have a physical, or something, and when I've done it, I don't know, it's because I had that in my mind, but I felt I was not so blocked. I felt pretty open, but it seems to be that it didn't have the impact I was kind of expecting, but maybe it had, so I don't know.
Right.
And
well, everyone's different. Everyone's different. Imagine if your system is not full of roadblocks. Roadblocks don't need to be broken open. If there's parts of you that need expression, they're going to express. But you may not be tuned in enough to get the message yet. And an example would be, I hadn't seen my brother in a long time who does very similar work in Arizona. And he worked on me. I was on his table and I really felt almost nothing during that session. And I said, so what is it you were doing? And he said, oh, it'll take you a couple sessions of me working on you to notice it's a new energy level that I'm working at. And you haven't had this yet before, so your body doesn't recognize it, but it's still working. And he was right. A couple sessions later, and I was like, oh my God, I missed. Now I remember on the first session that I actually felt it. I just didn't know I felt it because I'd never known to pay attention to it. So, there's levels like that where as you get the work done, your system integrates it, acclimates, and says, oh, this is good for me. It's like the subconscious. To connect to your subconscious is a lot like connecting to a stray cat on the street, right? If you go after it, it runs the other way. But if you just put your fingers out with some food, day after day, it gets closer until it meets you. And that's the same thing. We have to find gentle ways to meet the system so we can get access to the control system. And the control system is almost like antithetical to what it actually is, because the control system is the control system, but it's not control the way we think of control. It's control like a breeze that comes. Like you can't control the breeze comes. We can't control the subconscious. You always have to come in through a side door without telling. If you tell it directly, it's going to guard itself. So that's the nature of a lot of this work.
So can you explain that? What do you mean? Like if you, I'm curious, like it needs to come from the side door. Like,
well, yes, I cannot say to you, subconscious, I need you to do this. It will not hear
Order it.
Right. But if I was to use, Milton Erickson's hypnotic language, where he was, as a medical doctor, they tried to take away his license because he was able to take away people's pain and suffering just by talking to them. Right. And some of the things he would do was he might look over their shoulder when he was making a command. Like when he might say to you, Jonathan, you're doing really great. And you know what? Sometimes there's a time you should say to yourself, there's no more pain. And when he says there's no more pain, he would change his voice and look somewhere else. So it would mark it for your subconscious to say, oh, this is a different message. Let me notice this. And he would create a pattern. The subconscious then would make changes in the body. So you can't directly access the subconscious. And that's why you do things like meditation, because you don't realize meditation is about going into the subconscious, but it's something that makes no sense. Sit quietly, breathe, or focus on a word or a mantra. And next thing you know, you have more access to that part of your system. Even in my book, I talk about cravings and how we use them to access your subconscious. Because when you get a craving, and we get them late at night, I don't want to eat after 8, but I suddenly have a craving for something at 9. If I take that craving and instead of just eating some food, I sit down and I close my eyes and feel the craving, and I have an image of what it is I want in my life, the subconscious gate is open. It's sending a message up saying, feed this. There's a part of you that wants to be fed because you're uncomfortable, you're insecure, you're sugar, whatever it might be. So instead of feeding it right away, you close your eyes, feel the feeling of the craving, and instead think of and feel the feeling of what it is you want in your life. And suddenly, with the subconscious gate already open, you're biohacking your subconscious to get in there and plant things that you want instead of it sending out a message to you saying, do something you don't want to do because it's going to comfort you in some way. Right? So all of these things they're things that are not really common sense unless you're looking for the pattern.
Because I saw some people around me, they were like very sensitive. So when Donnie was doing something like his work, they felt it like really, like I was like looking at them and they like, sure, it seems, and I was like, I think it's maybe my competition side of myself or my, I was like, okay, why me? I'm not feeling it. But really like that was, and I mean, that's in your world. So I'm sure like you're used to see that. Some people are probably more sensitive, or maybe they've done the work so many times that they learn how to receive, how to feel that, or
it is like that. It's the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. It becomes just like
in there.
Yeah. I mean, imagine Donnie's been doing this work for 50 years, right? So he's finely tuned to many things. It's like having your radio in your car. If you only thought there was 4 channels, you go click, 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 click. But when you get these types of radios where you turn it gently and it doesn't click at all, and next thing you know, is like, oh my God, I could turn this to not just every channel, but in between each channel. And there's always, it's infinite, right? In between 1 and 2, there's infinity. You could do 1.1, 1.2. You could count 1 to 1 point a zillion, and you didn't get to number 2 yet. And that's how it is with frequency. So it's which frequencies are most helpful for humanity when you're doing healing work, and how do I access them?
Wow.
It's practice. Just practice.
And so tell me more about the intuition method. So is it like, so your book?
Yes.
First, I think it's when have you launched it? It's pretty new, I think.
This book, well, we had the book launch in December.
Okay, so yeah, that's amazing.
Pretty recently, yeah. It was December in Faina. It was on 12/12 at a hotel here in Miami. It was a beautiful event. I did a little bit of a reading. We talked. I gave some demonstrations, a little bit of the work and how to do the exercise to use your breath so that way you can access your intuition, because I wanted to give everyone something to go home with that they could use. Right? And I know most people, unless they're hungry for it, they're not going to practice. But imagine it takes about 60 seconds to practice about 3 times a day for a week. And then your system's trained to recognize the feeling. And then you have a new skill set and a new superpower. And like, in my mind, why wouldn't you do it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. I also gave them something that I discovered. I'll share it with you here. And I bought, so in our pineal gland, which is known as the third eye, and let's call it the spiritual world, it's the kind of thing that will slow time for you in an accident so you can decide what you need to do. Well, in the pineal gland, there are two minerals. They're piezoelectric minerals. And so what that means is when they rub against each other, they create electrical impulses. And so those minerals are calcite and those minerals are magnetite.
Okay.
So what I did was I brought little bags of calcites and magnetites to give to everybody who purchased the book there, because if you keep it with you, they're in the same bag, they're rubbing against each other. And like any frequency, there's a resonance between your brain and what's in your pocket. So it was a very beautiful gift for people to kind of like hack into their system and do something that's going to wake them up even faster. Because everyone who's there wants to learn. Everybody who's there wants to get to the next level. And then I went over some of the other, the exercises in here go from the gross physical, from putting a piece of hair under a sheet of paper and feeling it with your hand, touching it. And then putting 2 sheets and 3 sheets. And by 6 or 7 sheets, most people won't feel the bump from the hair anymore. And by 10, nobody's going to feel it. Well, what you find is when you close your eyes and you get out of the way and you just move your hand gently over the paper, very gently. If you push hard, you definitely won't feel it. Very gently, you'll find 9 out of 10 times you're stopping right where the hair is. Because your finest your finest sensory neurons in your fingertips are activated. You're not pushing all of them at once. It's just one. So these are things we might call intuitive, but it's really physical traits, right? When we go into the forest at night and we're walking in the dark, we put our hands in front of us like this as we walk. When we hear something to the left, we do this. Why? Because the hands are radar dishes. They feel energy. Right? We're moving. So all of these things are within us already. We're just not putting a name to it. We're not realizing we're doing that for a reason. We don't call someone who had knee surgery psychic when they know it's going to rain. Right? But if they didn't tell anyone they had knee surgery, we might say, my gosh, you're really good. Wow. And they're like, yeah, it's just my knee. It's just my knee telegraph. Right? We don't say to you when how did you know you were hungry? And you say, oh, because my stomach was gurgling or hurting. It's just, and so it's just levels of sensitivity that tell us what we're having when there's something happening that's out of the ordinary. Yeah. So we talk about the hair. I have exercises in here on things like taking 1 grain of salt with, a quarter of a teaspoon of sugar and putting it in your mouth and noticing salt, and then switching salt to sugar and training yourself to notice the super subtleties, because the more subtle you go, until you're, from a pebble to a piece of dust, and you think, oh, I can't really feel dust. But if you put dust in your nose, you can feel it. So we do have a sensitivity.
Even it's very small.
Exactly. So we want to learn to refine our sensitivities until we're at the point where it's not touchable, until it's energy. And so, and that's the nature of the book, is the training, and then the mindset that goes with it, and explaining how the mind works. And, to me, it's just, there's so much joy in this book. It took 4 years to write it.
I was curious. So 4 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And have you, is this your first book that you wrote?
It's not. No. I've written a number of books on different topics. This is my first educational book on this topic that I would say is a fun read. Before this, I wrote a kid's book called Pranayama and the Art of Non-Biting, which I have a copy of it here. It's about pranayama is a kind of meditation where you're breathing like this. But this is about a piranha named Yama who has an out-of-body experience and meets her teacher in the dream world. And
nice.
Begins to train.
Cool.
Yeah, so she starts training with her teacher. So, basic piranhas don't always have to fight and bite. And she meets her teacher, who starts training her every night in her dreams.
Very cool.
And she brings back her message to the other piranha. So it's sort of like a Finding Nemo Kung Fu Panda style book. Yes. And just recently I had a car accident, and while I was not as easily mobile, I was working on a new book on manifestation. And so that'll be out hopefully pretty soon. It's more like a gift book, so it's a faster write.
Okay.
But it's basically principles on what we need to do to get into the right frequency to create our lives.
Mm. Wow. So would you say that meditation is the key to unlock it? Or like, even if there's some people that say, you know what, meditation, it's not for me, or they don't really like, can they still access to it? Or like, what's your...
It's always there. It's always there. It's the question, if your car windows are closed and you're blasting your music, you're not going to hear it. Just like you're not going to hear the car honking at you, right? You're dulling out you're overwhelming your ears, so you won't hear the truck that's coming, and the intuition's quieter. So meditation is one of the easiest ways. Or you could live a solitary life in the cave, in the woods, someplace, any place that's quiet, that's going to quiet your mind and stop us from thinking about so many things and just keeping our minds noisy. Anything like that will give us access to our messaging, because that's what the subconscious does. It just conveyor belts the messages to our doorstep, where we have a choice to notice it or not notice it. And if we're busy, we're not going to notice it. You know, that's really what it comes down to. Meditation is the easiest way. If you're consistent,
would you say that the guided meditation is better, or it's better like science meditation, or do you add like some...
Yeah.
Because I mean, meditation, it's one word, but there's so many different type, or...
Right. Yeah.
So what would you recommend?
Well, I would say, to me, guided meditation is much more like hypnosis, right? We call it guided meditation, but, you know, meditation typically is you're going within, and we can be led on a journey, and it's still meditation, but I can say it's more hypnotic in some way, right? Because we're following a story, we're being led somewhere. I think for most people, it's harder to sit in silence and with eyes closed, to just repeat a word or to follow their breath. Each one to me has different intentions. Following breath for me is much more work than using a mantra or a word and letting it repeat over and over in my mind. Sometimes I will choose a phrase that I like from, let's say, a well-known spiritualist, if I have a specific intention that I'm interested in. Meditation has got to be the number one way to get there. If you want to get there fast, and if you're committed, and if you can get out of the way. Because if you think I'm going to meditate to increase my awareness, my intuition, and that's your focus, you'll still get there. But you're thinking about something that's going to get in the way while you're doing it. Because if you're thinking about your goal while you're meditating, you're not meditating. Right?
You're doing visualization, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I have some, for some time I was doing Monday night meditations for manifestation, where I would do it over Zoom and record it. I've got a small library of that. And at some point I'll be releasing some of these guided meditations for people that just want more help getting on track and maintaining the frequency of what they want and their awareness, because it's too easy for too many people to fall into a down state. You know, it's the media that feeds us just to feel certain ways versus uplifting us very often. And so, you know, that's why one of the reasons, like, doing a positive show on enhancing your life and increasing your longevity is it's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. So if I understand correctly, basically meditation with a mantra or science meditation would be better than guided.
It's likely that, yes, because you're going
your point
quiet.
of view,
you're going into quiet. You're letting your noisy mind start to quiet down. It's like a fire that's starting to go out. On the other hand, if you're able to really follow the guided meditation specifically, word for word, and you're staying with it, you're also quieting your mind. Because anything your one focus is on, anything your one-mindedness is on, is going to act as a quieter for the mind. Right? And a monk one day asked me this question, and she said, what if food is nourishment for the body, what is nourishment for the mind? And the answer was stillness. Stillness. And I knew she was right because I felt it like, whoa, yes, stillness is what it's vitamins, it's energy for our mind. So we need to give it that stillness so it can settle itself, so it can do what it needs to do, so it can give us access to other realms, to whatever we need, really.
And would you say meditation would be like, when you're stressed, you meditate? When you want to do like, is it better like, okay, so every morning I wake up and because before I was doing that, I was waking up, I was doing meditation, I had a good rhythm, and now I have a child, and I think, I don't know why I'm saying that. Maybe it's just an excuse. Probably it's just an excuse because I could still wake up earlier. But I mean, I find, like, I think the most important is to do it on a consistency basis, like consistently. But sometimes I feel like, I don't know, I just don't know when to do it. I know it's like probably a stupid question, but and I'm sure like a lot of people, they have the intention, they know about meditation, they know they need to do it, they want to do it, but it's just like times fly, and boom, it's dinner time with family, and then like the day, and now it's time to sleep, and you're like, okay, if you meditate before sleeping, then you fall asleep, but are you so and maybe it's just me, I'm asking too much question and I should just do it, but
I think there's that. Just do it, but also depending on what you want, there's different times that are very good for meditation, and any time is a good time because it's like melting an ice cube. Your mind is going from here and then quieter, melting. But if you have an intention that you want to create in your life, one of the best times to meditate is when you feel inspired. And so I talk about that in a way where if you're watching a movie, a TV show, or someone says something that moves you greatly, that emotion of inspiration that you just got, the hero wins and you feel like, oh yeah. When you feel that, that's the time. Shut off the TV, close your eyes, experience that feeling and drop in, because you're very present with this emotion of something you want in your life that is joyous and awesome. And so it's already there for you. You don't have to create it. It's a different reason to meditate. It's a meditation for manifestation, because now that you're in to manifest, you must be in a festive state, right? It's in the word. And so to get festive, you're being handed that now. You don't have to even think of something that you've been through or that you want and feel it. So you just say, got to pause this show for a second so I can, just sit with that feeling. And then while you're doing that, insert the imagery of what it is you want in your life, because it's already layered there for you. So use it. And to me, this is one of the best times to meditate. There are other great times like 3 a.m. when the pineal gland is very active. But it's a great practice to be able to take that emotion and use it for something, because all of these things are tools. Having a great emotion isn't just to enjoy the emotion. Everything we have in our life is a tool for something else, right? Like cravings are a tool to get into the system. Deja vu is a tool to learn how to be more intuitive, right? Deja vu is actually something where you got an intuitive message, but you missed it. And 2 weeks later, you're having deja vu and you're going, gosh, God, what do I notice? I've been here before. Something's going on here. And it's really because you already got the message, but you missed it. And over time, one day I connected and I said, oh yeah, I did know this and I missed it. And then it got me to look at my intuition more closely and to realize that's exactly what deja vu is. And the more you notice it, the more deja vu you'll have, because then your intuition wants to give you more. I want you to notice and notice and notice.
Wow. So basically meditation would be like, I mean, I don't need, because I always heard like you need to have no expectation or not thinking about something when you meditate. You just quiet your mind and, like you go into stillness. But should I, and the answer is no, but I should not expect to have intuition moment right now at that when I do meditation, right? So it's more like you just relax your mind the more you can, So you're more receptive to what comes, basically?
Well, with meditation, you're really not going to let your mind go to nothingness. When we say stillness, what we mean is you're putting your attention on one thing. Right? So you're focusing on your belly raising and falling as you breathe, or maybe you're focusing on your breath going in and out of your nostrils. But that's just one thing. And then your thoughts come in and pull you away. When you realize you floated away to think about dinner, you basically are doing a bicep curl with your mind. And you're saying, oh, good, let me pull it back here. And you're training yourself to come back to the breath. If you have a mantra, the word love, and you're repeating love or healing or health, and you're repeating that over and letting it play in your mind, you're putting your attention on that. Now, often with the mantra, you will start to fade away, right? It's something that begins to play on its own because you're putting your attention on it, and then suddenly it's like an old record player playing, and you'll hear it in the background. And it's typically Vedic or transcendental meditation where suddenly you're somewhere else, and it feels really good. And that's a place where suddenly the ideas will start popping in. The intuition will just, you're connected to it. You're at an equilibrium with consciousness. You're with the field of consciousness. So things will just float in that are attracted to you. Things will just pass by that you'll notice and say, oh, I love that idea. Oh, that's really good for my business. Right? And so, that's the idea, is to get to such a place of stillness that the waters of consciousness can pass you and you can watch them like a little boat passing and say, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. I like that. Yeah. Or you get resolution for something that you need too.
Wow. So why the body? Are we like so attached to sometimes negative emotion or like stress or like, like why we're so attached to that? Like
to stress?
Yeah, stress or like, we said trauma, basically it's something that is like that it's a bad emotion that just kept inside of us. And like, is it like our protective mode, like fight or flight mechanism that is, or something else, or
yeah, it's, there are people that have had a trauma, where they got bit by a dog when they're 6 years old. And for the rest of their lives, they no longer can enjoy dogs. They're scared of dogs. That's a trauma pattern that sits with them for all year. And they may have to go through training to get through that, therapy, whatever it might be. But the fact is, as they go through that training, that might take some time, they're changing their frequency. They're changing the way they think about things. Brainwaves are frequencies. EKG waves are frequencies. These are changing as we are trained differently. And so we'll hold this. The subconscious is timeless. It's saying you're still 6 years old and dog bites. And even though you're 30. So what we want to do is, how do we release that frequency? Well, it's just that. It's like a scar tissue that's attached to your body, but it'll let go the moment you say, let go. And you mean it. And you can't directly say, let go, and it lets go. You need some help. You need someone who can come in with the gentle little scissors and go click, 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 click. And it just suddenly it floats away. It's not there anymore. So when I do the field work with people, and I do the first or second or third round within the session, and I say, how do you feel? And they say, it's really strange. I remember the emotion, but it's like way over there. I could see it in a distance. And I say, yeah, it's like a bus. It's like a bus that is right on top of you. All you can do is go, before it hits you. But if the bus is 100 feet away, you could see the bus. You could say, oh, I could cross the street. Oh, I don't have to worry about that. It's not even driving. But it's got such a distance that you realize it's not yours. And it's not going.
It's like emotion. It's detached, basically.
It 100% detaches. And suddenly, it's fascinating because you can't remember what it feels like.
Really? That much?
That's how much you can't remember. Wow. And I'll say to the person again for the next round in that session, so I'll say, think of that feeling again. Bring it up. I know it's more difficult, but bring it up. Dig deep. Find all the areas where there's pain and just hold that feeling for a few seconds so the frequency comes up, and then we'll clear it. And I said, gosh, I can't find it. So, okay, so we're okay. And then we'll go to the next level.
We touch on something.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's so beautiful about it, is it's so fast. From there, we drop down into a deeper brainwave state, and that's one of the things that is really interesting. I was recently invited to work with a hospital, the cardiology program and their brainwave program, because when I do this work, the brainwaves go into very unusual states, and I typically can help them move, even though I'm not touching the person. So from there, we drop into a deep brainwave state of about a theta, like a 6. It's in the 6 range, and I'll let the mind start to kind of like flush itself, like let the subconscious do what it's got to do. And then we'll begin to install the program they want, which is, what do you want in your life? Manifestation, hold the feeling. Now a new frequency comes in of what you want. And with that frequency, then I begin to infuse it or install it into the energetics of your system to replace the frequency that was a traumatic scar.
Wow.
So we're making huge shifts.
I want to see that live, like, that looks so cool.
I'll send you one of the testimonials, and we can do a session too.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I'll send you the session, yes.
And like pain, let's say back pain or headache, what about like a broken bone, could you...
Yeah. So if
like,
someone has a broken bone...
or like ligament or like something more like, a rupture, like, is there something that can be done, you think? Or
well, I have a really great video of a woman who had a tooth pulled.
Okay.
And she was just in pain. I mean, horrible pain, just terrible. And she said, "Can you help me? Because it's in my face, so it's like a headache." And I said, "Oh, let's find out."
Yeah.
I said, "Let's find out. Do you mind if I record the session?" And she said, "No, go ahead." And doing the work, it took about 20 minutes, no change. She's saying, it's not working. And I said, "Okay, let's just give it a few more minutes. We're over Zoom and we're talking." And then I said to her,
Zoom,
it's
William,
over. Yeah,
like, how can you do that over Zoom? Like,
you know what? Imagine somebody saying, "How could you have a conversation over Zoom, on video?"
I don't know.
Advanced technology, right?
No, man. You see do you feel the energy? I don't know. It's just phenomenal to me. Like, it's,
well,
it's kind of scary on one side. It's exciting and scary.
It's not, speaking of scary, I'll tell you a story about that in a moment. But this woman, we're talking, and I said, "Let's give it a few minutes and we'll continue." We're talking for about 2 minutes. Then I said to her, she looked different. She looked happier. She wasn't like holding her face. And I said, "How are you feeling?" And she went like this. "William, oh my God, it's better." Now, usually it happens as I do the work, but this time there was a little time delay of a few minutes. And she said, "Oh my God." And now she stood up, she's walking around her house. She's going, "Oh my God, oh my God." And if you look at my Headaches Heal website, she's in one of the testimonials. You don't know that it was her tooth that was, extracted, but you just see her walking around going, "Oh my God, I can't believe I'm better." And it was, it was a very happy moment because,
of course,
I didn't know that it would help, because having a bone broken to pull out a tooth is, different than a headache. But it was pretty amazing. And in reference to the fear, I did have a 13-year-old boy with a headache that I helped. And afterwards he said to me, "So can you give someone a headache?" I said, "Wow, I never thought of that." Well,
that's a good question.
Yeah. And I realized, I don't know the pattern of somebody's trauma or their headaches. All I know is if you're feeling it, I can feel it and clear it. And then I can't install something positive either. I have to ask you to feel it, and then I can install it once the frequency is there. So, if you were to give yourself a headache, maybe I could make it, solidify it. But I never tried, of course, but it was an interesting question from a kid.
You should, you would need to have someone to try it, but, it would be cool that somebody had no headache, you install it, and then you remove it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Then why would you do that?
It doesn't seem like a valuable usage of my time.
No. And I'm curious, there's something I need to ask you. Like, do you feel like every pain that we have come from an emotion, something like, or, I had a ski accident, I broke my bone, that's a ski accident.
Yeah.
Or, you know what? I broke my bone because life, there's a purpose of me that life, either I didn't listen to some signal and then I hit something, or because I need to stop doing ski for that reason and do something else. What's your thought?
Well, It's a good question. And there's a lot of answers to that, can apply on Earth, let's say. Every trauma, physical or not, has an emotional component, right? When you hurt your shoulder, went with it fear. Oh, shoot, look what I did. I'm in trouble. I'm going to need, I don't know, right? So there's always going to be an emotional component that we can address it from. But there is something else that comes before that, and that's the field of consciousness. That's our mind. That's our subconscious. There's probably before in your skiing accident, if that's what it was, before you hurt your shoulder, you can probably look back a moment before you fell and say, I could have avoided this. A lot of times there's that. I used to call it the 1, 2, 3 moment. It was that moment where when the red light was turning yellow, I could have hit the brake, but I decided, I'm going to go for it, even though it was close, right? But there was a moment I could have stopped. And thank God I've never had to pay for that. But there is something in the consciousness that connects to our subconscious for what we want. So we want to live happy lives. And when I say I want to be happy, if I end that sentence with but, it means there's something else in there below the surface that's telling me maybe I'm not ready to be happy. There's a program that's running below the surface, subconscious, so I'm not even aware of it. And that's one of the things I speak to about people. If your life is not now the way you want it to be, that means something is running below the surface, making it that way. Because if you were conscious of it, you would change it. And so something in the subconscious, in the control room, is saying, not worthy. Something is saying, not good enough. And so that's what we have to access to change that system. Now, there are other ways to do it. I mean, one of the ways is what you're doing right now, right? If you spend time with people that are successful and have high levels of ambition, your brainwaves will sync up to their brainwaves, right? They're electromagnetic. So the reason we sit at the foot of the master when we meditate is not, yes, it's to be in the master's presence, but it's because his energy field, his brainwaves are so coherent that you being around this person is going to magnetize your brainwaves to live the life of his brainwaves, which is an upgrade. So what do we say? Your 5 closest people are the way you're living your life. You're all synchronizing your systems. And so that's a shortcut, finding good people to be around. It saves a lot of time, where if you're around people living lifestyles you don't want in your life, it only makes sense you're going to be more like that, right? So
it's funny, William, because it just clicked, like what you just said, like 1, 2, 3, and like, because if I go back to my 2 ski accident I had, one was my shoulder and the other one my knee. If I would have probably be more conscious, and when we say conscious would be if I would have listened more to my inner voice, intuition,
yes,
I would have probably not take the jump for my knee, and I would have not broke my knee. And on the other side, I would have probably slowed down. But when we look at it on a bit higher perspective, if we trust life and the universe, one thing led to the other, and then maybe I would not do that podcast, or maybe, like your life can go in so many directions. So I think we really need to be thankful and grateful for what happened to us, So that's really, really important. But yes, when we are more in tune, it's really funny what you just said, like just make me realize like more what consciousness mean, It's not just a word, it's really like that. Yeah.
Being aware, right?
Awareness.
It's a difference between what I call active attention and passive attention. Active attention is us knowing we're talking to each other. Passive attention is you being aware that the light is touching your face and you feel a little bit of heat from the sun while we're talking. And that's the intuition side of things, right? While we're talking, there's messages coming in that you may or may not notice. And all of these things, I call them moments of natural strangeness. Because they're all very natural, but they're also strange. But they happen so often, we disregard them. Meaning, you think of your friend and they call you. So natural, happens all the time, but also strange if you think about it.
Yeah.
And deja vu, also natural, but strange. But all of these are within in that space of, these are little gifts. These are abilities that I've got. These are traits that I'm not using because I look at them as if they're happening to me instead of for me.
Exactly.
And if we start to see all of these things as for me, right? There was a voice that spoke to you when you were probably in the air about to land, and he said, "Oh, my knee. Oh, yeah." And, maybe we can't time travel back and get back up on that slope before the jump, but something in you already knew there was a result coming from this.
What do you mean? Like,
when you landed,
I knew what before I jumped, for example, I knew that was dangerous. I didn't see the landing, but I was influenced by a younger crowd that they were like doing some crazy stuff, and I was like, my inner voice was like, Jonathan, it's you don't see the landing. It's dangerous. They're crazy. Like you're 36, 37 years old now. Like,
yeah,
but I still did it.
Right.
I didn't listen to it.
Yes,
and obviously, but I say obviously, I could have jumped and not be injured.
Right.
So when you say,
when your voice speaks to you, when your inner voice speaks, there are only a few things that get you not to listen. And they're tied into what, old school, like biblically would be called the 7 deadly sins: greed, lust, envy, gluttony. All of these things are the things that get us to say, I'm going to do it anyway. Right? Our inner voice speaks quietly, but greed makes us do
louder.
Something. Yeah, it makes us go, I gotta do it. And lust. I mean, how many bad mistakes, wars have been started over lust, right? But inside the person, they don't want to be at war. There's just like, I'm fighting for something that is an emotion, and I'm not fighting for something that actually is going to benefit everyone, because the quiet voice is the one that, the still small voice, as they call it, is the one that's speaking to us saying, oh, do you need that? Oh, you have peace now. What's more important than peace? What's more important than everyone having peace? Probably not danger, but we still go towards the danger because these emotions override the quietness of that little voice. So for you, when they're peer pressure, acceptance, you want to be with cool and fun, and, and then there's that small payoff of, okay, and now I have to learn something about myself. Heal. Realize that there's more to life than, whatever the lesson is for you there. I'm sure there's many. I mean, and we all
at that moment, I didn't listen to it. But when these moments will come again in different ways in my life and in the life of everyone who's watching, this podcast, like how can you listen to that voice even if it's the other voice is louder, like how do you make that decision, that switch in that super fast moment?
Right. Well, you quiet the mind. When you quiet the mind, when you meditate, time expands. So you're able to see more space in between each event that's happening. It's almost like you're watching things like in the Matrix. He's moving from the bullets super slow. To him, it's everything's slow, but to the bullet shooter, the bullets are moving very fast. And it's like that. You start to notice things, your mind reacts much slower. So you have more time to think and make choices. If you want.
So in that moment, it's too late. It's like the work that needs to be done before. So you need.
You know what? Maybe I'm sure there's options. I don't know for sure.
Maybe to breathe in these moments, because breathing, I know in very stressful moment, breathing just in the moment, count me down very fast. And I guess maybe in that state, I would make better judgment decision.
Yeah.
People would do.
There's that. But I'm looking more at the miracles that can happen. The miracles that when you landed, somebody somehow happened to throw a giant pillow on that spot. And you're just going, I know that didn't happen, but you're just saying, wow, that was amazing. And you'll never know what pain you would have had if the pillow wasn't there because something saved you. And these things happen too. And it has to do with changing our mind state, changing our frequency in such a big way, so fast. It's like watching those videos on YouTube where someone's about to get hit by a car, they don't know it, and suddenly out of the blue, someone pulls them out of the way, or something falls and it moves the car the other direction. Like there are interventions that happen, and it's either by our higher selves, by angels, by God, by our subconscious that's giving it, that's really saving our lives. So there are definitely things that happen. They're not as easy to control, you know, because they're coming from another level, at least in the way I see it. Yeah.
And you know, I mean, now I'm listening to you, and the thought that comes to my mind is like, yes, I tear my meniscus, but I didn't broke my leg. I didn't hit my head. You know, I was able to, you know, I'm still running. I'm still active. So it could have been very, very worse. You know, like I did a phenomenal catch. Like I was like, that would have been awesome to record that moment. The way I recuperate the landing and everything. And so maybe I had a pillow under my knee when it happened, you know, but it just, when my focus was maybe, oh, I clear my meniscus. No, maybe you say here, you know, maybe your meniscus save a lot of more injury that you could have.
Or, yeah.
So sometimes what do you focus on? You know, do you focus on
100%,
you know, on the pain, or what the life that this gave it to you?
That's right. You know, and if you think about the amazingness of the human body, it's made in a way to donate the parts of itself or sacrifice the parts of itself to save the more important parts. So your knee is going to buckle before your hip has to hit, or your hip is going to get affected before the heart, or, you know, it's really an amazing creation, this human body of ours, and how it will sacrifice parts of itself to save the whole.
It's a very like technical situation that I just explained, but I think like for everyone listening, like if they can close their eyes and really like go through a moment in their life where maybe they could have, if they would have been more conscious, they could have made a different decision.
Sure.
And just that small decision could have impacted a lot, either their health, their, you know.
Yeah.
So
that, and like for people to do that, that would be anytime. I mean, it's a beautiful message, because we need to do that. That needs to be a practice.
We need to do that every time. I mean, it's like just before the podcast, like I just had a new camera here, like new light. Like I was ready for the podcast, you know, but the camera didn't work just before we started recording. So I'm recording on my way.
It would be gone, because it's going to just be, we'll tune into the fear, clear the fear. And it would be gone in one session.
Very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's just frequencies. It's all just frequency.
I believe in it. And I mean, when we go back, there's always an emotion attached. I mean, it's
consider this. Something that I realized some time ago is, just like the eyes are the transformer or the receiver of light waves, and then we see images, the ears pick up sound waves and turn them into sound, and the body is picking up a frequency for emotions. And but if they're difficult emotions, they stick to us. And in a sense, they're, I don't want to say damaging us, but they're restricting our lives in some way. And some have said to me, but do you want to let them go that quickly? Don't you need to learn a lesson from the pain and from the emotion? And my answer to that is, how long do you need to hold the pain for? Maybe the lesson is you can let it go faster than you thought. I mean, how long do we need to hurt before we can say, okay, I can let this go now? And what did you learn from it? What is the message with this pain? It's okay. I want to avoid something like this again, but we don't need to keep it. And that's why it ties in so beautifully with family constellation.
Exactly. That's the pain is not yours. Exactly. I mean, that was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And what about cancer or like bigger illness? Like, would you feel that, doing that type of work could really help healing people that has severe illness problems?
It's as I have to say, this work is not
just a discussion. There's
it's not a
treatment, medical advice or whatever.
Yeah,
but I mean,
I can tell you this. If there was a device developed in Germany many years ago that worked with frequencies, a technological device that for some time was made illegal to use in the U.S. And it was a frequency device called a Rice machine, and this doctor discovered certain frequencies will destroy certain cells. So if you had a parasite, they would tune it to a frequency and it would basically pop the cell membrane. And he found this with all kinds of diseases. And if you ever look it up, you'll see that it was not permitted to be used in the U.S. And if anyone in the U.S. has it, they're not allowed to talk about it. They certainly can't let clients use it and things like that. Well, so if you can change your frequency and your state, your whole body will change. So, I know people that have done things like shamanic ceremonies that had cancer, and that wasn't the only thing they did, but it was part of their process to change the way life looks, to change the life they're living, to change the programs, which then changes the immune system, which then changes everything else. So frequency is very, I'll say it's maybe the most important thing. Even if you look at any medicines, any drugs, what are they at their basis? They're electrons, they're protons, they're neutrons, they're particles and waves. We look at them as a physical form, a pill or a liquid, but at its basic level, it's frequency. And so if we can connect and, at least if nothing else, clear the patterns that are causing emotional discomfort, that's going to lift the person a little bit. That's going to give the immune system a chance to be a little happier, right? There was a man who wrote a book, I forget, maybe it was, I forget his name right now, but he was diagnosed with cancer. He decided to just watch funny TV shows for, do you know the story?
No, I don't know.
For months and months, he wrote a book because he was given a very short time to live, and he said, I'm going to just laugh my way. And, maybe it was 6 months or a year later, and he was totally well. And all he did was watch shows that would make him laugh nonstop. So changing the frequency of the system, of the mind, of the nervous system, going into a state of joy makes more sense.
Of course.
No matter what. But certainly, so would I be able to help somebody in terms of healing? Healing is the whole system, right? And in terms of somebody feeling better, if I put a jackhammer near your ears, it's going to bother you whether or not you ignore it or not. Imagine it's your subconscious. So if I shut off that jackhammer or find a way to play classical music instead, it's going to calm your system. And in a sense, that's like the work that I'm doing. I'm clearing the jackhammer so your system can go back to a peaceful state, and then I'm helping you go back to the you that you're supposed to be. And what we're supposed to be is way bigger than we know. It is. It's way bigger. We're not just supposed to be, okay, and now I'm here and I'm just nothing. No, we're so connected. We are, a river of divinity that goes through us. We're connected right to the top. Yes. And so, and this is why when we do the work in the first session, everyone will notice their vision is clearer when we're working because we remove the static and now there's more presence. And when you're present, everything just looks really beautiful and clear.
Yeah, I love it. You explained it such in a beautiful way, William. That's great. I really love it. So, and have you done Joe Dispenza meditation retreat?
Yeah. It's
yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's I love it. I call the Joe Dispenza meditation retreat a reverse trauma.
Okay.
Because a trauma is something that happens all at once and boom, and then you're in trouble. For a time anyway. And Joe Dispenza is a reverse trauma because you're putting in about 50 hours of meditation in about 6 or 7 days. And it's so in depth, but so good for you that you're easier because there's nothing tethering you to a past belief that says you're not worthy, you're not good enough. So it's an interesting tie-in because I love Dr. Joe's work. And then there's this other side where it's like, but how do we do it faster?
Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. And so, William, I would like to speak with you like for so much, and for I have so many, and I'm very curious, like to experience it. And like, does the people that doesn't speak English, for example, like I have, let's say, for example, my mother, she's got like an injury and she's like, has been 7 months that she's not working because she's in pain right now.
Me too.
And something happened, but she doesn't speak English. So can you do that with people doesn't speak English?
It depends what's happening. Like, for instance, in Miami, there's so many people that speak Spanish. So I have a little cheat sheet for that because I don't need to know what the actual, when it comes to an emotional state, I don't need to know the problem. I just need to know that the person can feel it. So if the person has shame, let's say, around an issue and they don't want to say what it is, I don't need to know. I just need them to feel the feeling. Make it real. As long as you feel it, the frequency's there like a scar that I can then help to dissolve. When it comes to physical pain, if there'd be a translator because, again, it's the same frequency that we're addressing, but I might need the person to take a breath, move their body a certain way. Because there are times when there's an angle I can't address because of some restriction. So maybe I need them to sit up or move a certain way, things like this. Yeah.
Sure. And would you say, and I'm asking the question, there's a lot of people that I know that is going to watch that recording. They are from Quebec. We speak French.
Yes.
And so what I understand is that basically you can do it, but with a translator.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
And with the translator or having another person, it doesn't block anything, the energy?
No, not at all. And as a matter of fact, if somebody called me yesterday to work on their husband and they were trying a lot of different things for an emotionally related skin condition. And I said, okay. And then when they told me all the things they tried already, I thought, oh, perfect. This is a person who's very active in their healing. And so I said to the wife, I'd love for you to be in the room so you can watch, because it's clear to me that, you're doing all these different things. So you're probably going to be sensitive. You'll get a lot of benefits out of it yourself. So the person who's in the room with the other person is also going to benefit.
Okay.
Especially if I could see them on screen.
Sure. Okay. Wow. Okay. So for example, if I'm with my mother, it will, as long as basically she's open to
just has to say yes. And be a little curious, if you say yes, but you're just like, there's instructions, there's a protocol to follow that I work through with you. And so as we go step by step, door by door, you have to be game for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. So many, I have so many people in my mind that could benefit from that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Especially if it's somebody who, if the emotional component is strong, it's most effective for physical, right? So if your mom's having this, if there's a man who's been angry his whole life, so he's like this with his shoulders all the time, for him, if he's open to it, it'll be amazing.
Yeah, so I don't want to, we'll take another time to talk about that more precisely, but I feel it's, but I have a neighbor, for example, she just got diagnosed with a cancer and they removed like a tumor from her and she's in remission right now. But it's the type of thing that, but yeah, or someone I know that is scared of flying. But I feel it's like that's like solving an issue, like solving a pain or something from the past.
Okay.
But what about preventing, like,
well,
would you say that every 6 months, like even if we don't have any injury, any pain, because we all have something, right?
Yeah, right.
Maybe not physical. Like, would you recommend to do like a session guided with you, or like to do, say you or people that does a seminar work?
I think for sure. Look, people have things they don't know they have. So when I do a session, I'll always start out with just clearing what I call the static or the rough edges of the mind, of the field around the body. And that usually will be a great start. It gives me an opening. And then I'll ask the person what it is they want to work on. And again, they'll tell me if they want. But they might just say, you know what? Can we just go back to, because the other part of it is, let's go back to your first trauma that you remember. Because that first trauma creates a string for your whole life with a filter that every dog you ever see now you're afraid of because of one thing. So let's clear that. And then you could say, oh my God, I cannot believe dogs are so beautiful and so much fun. I can't believe my whole life I've been scared of dogs because of this. If I could have just untied that little string and let it go, I could have enjoyed all these dogs. So with some people, that's what I'll do. That we'll go step by step through a trauma. Then next thing you know, maybe they remember an earlier one, or maybe it's the next one, and little by little to the front, but I'll work on the whole room at the same time. Yeah. And And as it continues to grow, I think I'll start training others. It's just, the timing has to be right. People have to want to do it. I mean, you're called to do this work.
Yes.
Right. A lot of times it's someone who's doing an energy work already, but they want to do something more specific. Right. Maybe it's someone who already does Reiki, but they want to learn but I can actually address one thing. This person's depressed and I can clear that today. Let's do it. So it's a little, I call it surgical sometimes in its specificity, because we can go in after what we want.
Yes. Wow. That's beautiful. And I'm curious, what are you exciting the most for the future? For your life, for your and for the world in your in your
What am I
space,
excited the most about the future? Gee, what a question. Every time I work, and maybe this is a fault of mine, but I get excited about my work, right? So we say that's like the next thing that I'm going to notice or discover because I noticed something strange.
Like the number you just
like the
discovered,
numbers, exactly.
example,
Like the numbers. I don't know what that means yet. And it's foreign to me because there's no feeling that goes with it. Although I get to see them while I'm feeling the feeling. So I'm just noticing what happens with them so I can turn it into a formula, right? Because there might be a formula. It could be that when those zeros start to separate and the ones come in, it could be the body's in balance. Or it could be if I let more ones come in and move some of the zeros, maybe that's healthier. I don't know yet. So these are discoveries, and then I get to teach. So for me, I have some things that I'm working on now that are a little bit out there in terms of healing work. I hope to present them in the next few months, and they're a lot more visually showing, right? Because if I work on you, you know how you feel, but the person watching may not know how you feel. So I'm working on some things where I can make it more visual for anyone who's watching. And I think because, like what I said, when I teach how to see, energy in the invisible light spectrum, auras, part of the reason I teach it is because I know if you can feel energy and now you could see energy, your mind starts to say, oh, it's real because I'm seeing it and I'm feeling it. And it takes away the doubt, which means healing through energetics is real as well. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. And I think a lot of these things would probably sound.
No, I mean, there's nothing that sounds, and I'm very curious.
I think probably not in a public forum will I share it yet until I'm more ready because.
Sure, no problem.
It's something that, it's very personal until it's time to share it. And you can imagine, even with any of the work that I'm doing, I test it before I really go wide with it because maybe it's crazy. Maybe it doesn't work. When I did the headache work, once I discovered the reason the headaches work started was because somebody was having a heartbreak and I was a friend of a friend. And I said, do you want me to help you clear that emotional pattern and the heartbreak? And we were in the same room. So she said yes. And as I cleared the field of the heart, she had a few tears. She opened her eyes and said, oh, the migraine is gone. I was like, emotional patterns and migraines. Oh, and then I put out messages on social media saying I'm looking for 20 people to test for free in exchange for letting me record it with migraines and other kinds of headaches. Exactly. So that's what happened. And next thing you know, I knew I had an effective method. And so, and it's the same with all of this testing, and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes we don't know why something doesn't work on one while it works on another. That's mysterious too. It's like,
and that's the beauty of life.
Yeah.
I feel like when I see some people, and that's the thing. I mean, when we work with something which is like intangible, like it's invisible, talking about it's something, but when you see it, and,
exactly.
So I think, because, for example, like the experience that I had with the family constellation, with the, with the Donnie Epstein, and other event, even if it was not me, in some event was me that had the experience, but when you see it, you understand, okay, there's something going on, You know, like you believe more because you see it. But then the next step is to experience it. I feel
exactly.
So
right, and like meditation, you experience it once and you say, "Oh, nothing happened." So sometimes it takes more than that. One of the things I do look forward to.
And that's the thing. Like nothing happened, but what if something happened? But
Right.
it just you
Exactly.
It's like my experience with Donnie. Something happened. Like I just need to. And Donnie was telling me something. He was saying, Jonathan, you're like, I don't remember how he said it, but it was like, you're too stuck into your certainty. Like just like I don't know what he said exactly, but it's just like he was like, just like get out of certainty. Like so probably I was trying too much to understand or to know or to
right. Yes. And that's like the ice cube that melts. It's like rigid, 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 and then finally it starts to melt, and then suddenly it's no longer in its certainty state. It's an in-between state. Yeah, I understand what he would mean with that. But we can do a session sometime and even clear that. So
absolutely, I'm so excited to do it. So is there something else you wanted to? Wow, it's been like an hour 40 minutes.
Wow, is there anything else? Well, I was going to say one thing that excites me is on social media I see so many accounts related to spirituality and awakening inner abilities, and that's something that I do love because we need it. We need it. When I started writing the intuition method, it was because I heard so many people that were in the same mindset health-wise, clients of mine, patients of mine, and they would be arguing about news. And I noticed that the only difference was which news channel they watched.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I said, this is crazy. Okay, let me find a way, something I was already doing with them, but let me make a method to allow people to access intuition so they can listen to their inner voice. And what would happen is some were very proud and happy, like, yeah, I was right. And others, once they knew the system worked, would then either have to say, wow, I was tricked, or say, yeah, this method doesn't work. One or the other. So that was the starting point for it. And to see that so many people now want to learn how to access their intuition, how to feel energy, because all of these things are just stepping stones. They're just skills, just like being able to reach for a jar on the shelf. That's a skill too. This is just a natural skill. And so we're missing out so much by not developing. It's a huge gift in business. What if, a lot of business people have amazing intuition for their deals, but they don't even know how it's happening. So imagine you actually start to learn how it's happening and you can apply it to everything else. Right? I talk about intuition and manifestation as literally just being on the same spectrum. The intuition is the feminine aspect and manifestation is the masculine aspect. But they're the same coin. The inner voice. I'll be going to Arizona and Colorado in the near future. Just more live events. Guatemala is coming up for a big intuition and manifestation weekend. And that will be, the date's not set yet, but it will have a new skill set and kind of a little bit be like a Jedi Knight, which I also like very much. And that's called headachesheal.com.
Okay. Wow, perfect. I'm glad I'll check that out also.
Yeah, fantastic.
Amazing.
And anybody can email me, william@intuitionmethod.com.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, William. That was a beautiful session. And so please, we'll put everything in the comments and in the description. People can reach out to you. We cover so much thing today, and I'm really looking forward to do a session with you. We'll discuss a little bit later, but and probably, we can probably do it live and post it also, so people can be more aware about that.
Oh, fantastic! I would love that.
Really important.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. Such a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Well,
see you later.
Bye-bye.